Welcome back, players. I'm Jack with 36 Cancel, and this is Coco the Wise Cat. And today, we're full diving back into the world of Sword Art Online. SAO is the set I have most decks from. In total, I have 6 SAO decks despite not having a big love for the show or even having watched most of it. And the main reason for that is that Sword Art is one of the largest and most diverse sets in the game. It has 6 expansions, which is more than any other set. Gun Gale would technically make 7, but it's a standalone set. And on the horizon is Alicization, SAO's newest season. It's already in Japanese, and it's just a matter of time before it hits the English market, since SAO is always such a good seller. And because of that, each of the 5 main SAO girls has enough support to have their own decks. And of course, Kirito does too. So for today's deck tech, we're going to have a look at an older deck of mine that's been revamped with some new tech from the later SAO sets. It's Silica and her familiar Pina the Dragon. So starting in SAO's first set, Silica had a pretty interesting toolkit. Silica and Pina had some pretty cool combos and interactions that led a lot of players to build a deck around them. And as sets continued to come out, she got more support that interacted with the base kit in some really cool ways. And we know from our SAO standby deck that Silica is also the girl who got the standby combo. So without further ado, let's jump in. What we've got here is a pretty diverse list. You'll see tools from just about every set Silica was a part of, but one undeniable truth is that Silica has some really strong tools across all sets, and the level 0 is a great place to demonstrate that. Let's start with our most recent edition of these, Close Call Silica. Of course, she combos with Heinous Trap, SAO's only standby climax. When you play her to the stage, you can look at the top card of your deck and put it into your waiting room if you want. And then when you play Heinous Trap, you can bounce it to your hand. If you do, reveal the top card of your deck, and if it's a character, you can add it to your hand. We know from our SAO standby deck tech that this bounce by Silica frees up a slot in your stage to stand by something with Heinous Trap, and it's a free advantage combo. Close Call Silica is in a lot of decks now, as is Heinous Trap, and it's hardly a wonder why. Like we've said before, SAO is a treasure trove of amazing standby targets, and Silica herself is no exception. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, because Silica has many more amazing level 0s, one of which is Gathering Materials Silica, another staple among many SAO decks. She's another top checker, but instead you reveal the top card, and if it's a character, you add it to your hand and then pitch one. And on top of that, she's a level 0 reverser, so she's a filtering level 0 with another strong ability. Gathering Materials Silica is another one of those generic good cards that has been around for a while and will stay around in many decks to come. So we have a Silica from Ordinal Scale and a Silica from the first Extra Booster, and now we'll move to Re-Edit, where another interesting Silica level 0 was added. Adventure with Everyone's Silica, yet another top checker. You can put the top card of your deck into your waiting room or leave it there, and when she attacks, if you have one or less other characters, you reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a level 0 character, you can put it on any position of your stage as rest. We have a lot of good hits that can end up being a free card from this character, because this deck has some awesome back row characters at level 0. Close Call Silica is one of them, but let's move on to another. On Stage Silica, a new addition from Ordinal Scale. She gives everything in front of her plus 500 power, and you can pay 1 and rest her to give any one of your characters reverse salvage. This is pretty cool to have on a level 0, since you can start activating that tech pretty early on. Pay a stock and get a card on a stick. Not bad for a back row. So heading toward the end of the lineup, we have a 1-of tech piece, Looking Up at the Sky Silica. She's been reprinted more times than you can count on one hand if you've lost 2 of your fingers. But she's a 2500, pay 1, pitch 1 search. Many players elect to play their set's signature drop searcher as a 1-of, and so do I in this deck. And she's a Silica, so it's a win. Now that does it for our level 0 Silicas, but I can't move on from level 0 without talking about my Pinas. Silica's familiar Pina is the only character in this deck that isn't Silica herself, but he sure does help her out. Pina was printed in the first SAO set, and the combination of Silica and her Pinas spawned hundreds of dick jokes but also captivated innovative deck builders. You see, Pina gives all Silicas on the field plus 500 power, and you can send them to your waiting room to encore Silica instead of paying 3 stock. Now, the only problem with Pina is that he's not Avatar or Net, so Close Call Silica and Gathering Materials Silica can't add him to your hand. But Adventure with Everyone's Silica and On Stage Silica, as well as many others you'll see in the near future, can. In a Silica Waifu deck, this is amazing, and several early and later combos and cards were centered around these two. Back in the day where SAO, Project Diva, Modica, Fairy Tail, and Persona 4 were some of the only English Weiss sets, this was a pretty powerful combo. It may seem less interesting now, but in the following SAO sets, a ton of new support grew for this classic pair. Silica is far from best girl, but she's certainly come a long way in Weiss, and this deck tech kind of represents how a deck can evolve over time with new cards. And speaking of evolving, it's time to move on to the level 1. So as we know from our level 0, there are obviously some really cool standby targets and some Pina combos, and the first card in our level 1 lineup is both. Start of the Adventure Silica, the classic Pina combo. This was the combo that spawned many red SAO decks in the days of old, a 1-1-6-5 that combos with First Adventure. When this card attacks and First Adventure is in your climax zone, you can pay 1, If you do, you can choose a character in your waiting room called Familiar Pina and put it on your backstage as Rest, and then this card gets plus 3,500 until the end of turn. So this Silica gets big and grabs Pinas. Okay, last joke, I swear. This level 1 can reverse pretty much anything in her path, even early plays, because the Pina she resurrects also gives plus 500 power before the battle step. It's also worth mentioning that First Adventure was a plus 2 soul climax in set 1, but then got a promo version where it's a stock soul in set 2. I prefer the stock soul myself, but you can run either. All in all, this is a pretty slick combo, both then and now, and consider this. Now you can stand by this 1-1. This card is a great example of a classic that aged well with new tools to support it. Now the combo has new life breathed into it, and we can keep raising Pinas even to this day. Sorry. So now that we've seen one of the main combos that made classic Silica, let's check out some new stuff that came out for her deck. After Party Keiko, this is a card we've seen before, another Silica, or at least her IRL version from our standby deck. A level 1 reverser that can salvage a character if you pitch a climax. Now, sadly, she can't grab Pinas, but she can get her hands on anything else. Hand and board control rolled into one small Silica package, perfect for any deck, but especially for this one. What's next? Well, something else not quite new, but not quite old. Fluffy on the Head Silica, a gift from SAO Re-Edit. Following form, she's another pitch salvager. When she comes in, you can ditch a card to salvage a card with Silica or Pina in its name. So this is a general limitation of the card, but in this deck it's basically a pitch 1 to salvage 1, making her an excellent filter, but she has another ability. At the start of your climax phase, you can pay 3 and pitch a card. If you do, you can choose a card called Battle Stance Silica in your waiting room and put it on the stage where this card was, a 2/2/9/5 with 2 soul. Now this change is a tiny bit expensive, but well worth it. We'll talk about why later, but for now, let's move to our last level 1. Silica leaves the party, a 1/0 1500 backup that's in the deck mostly for posterity's sake. It's an old backup that's been outclassed in later sets, but it's Silica and it's red. It makes your start of the first Adventure Silica's 8k without any back rows though, so it does the job. And that's the end of our level 1. Over the curve and on to the level 2. From here on in, it's mostly new tech, starting with Battle Stance Silica, our resident 2/2 with 2 soul. Now, she's base 9/5, which is pretty big for everything else on the card, but this is an interesting case study. She has an ability that when you play her from your hand, you need to pitch a character or put her into your waiting room. Well, that kinda sucks. But players, who in Weiss actually plays 2/2s? I mean, come on. Well, if it wasn't obvious enough what you were supposed to do with her, her next ability reads, when this card is placed onto the stage from your waiting room and you have a card with Pina in its name, it gets the following ability until the end of turn. When this card's battle opponent becomes reversed, you can choose a character in your waiting room and put it into your hand. So while you don't want to play this card from your hand, it's not like you're planning to anyway. You have the change ability from Fluffy on the Head Silica, and now, thanks to new and improved Silica technology, we can stand by this massive 2/2 without incurring her drawback. Now, it's worth mentioning that we don't get the salvage if we do that, but still, a 2/2 with 2 soul for free, as we know from our standby deck tech, is nothing to sneeze at. With a change, a standby combo, and a lucky trigger, you can even have 3 of these on the stage at 1-0. Probably not going to happen on the regular, but the potential is definitely scary. Now, also at level 2, we have a 2/1 back row in case we'd like some extra power or another standby target. She gives all your characters plus 1k through both turns and gives your middle character hand on core. It's pretty spicy to have a global 1k out at level 1. Get my drift? She's a tech 1-of for some extra girth where it matters. So obviously the level 2 in any deck is pretty short, but as you can see, level 3 here isn't too heavy either. We have a package of 3 and 3, new and old. First up, we have the old, which is Silica's Bashful Troubled Look, a base 9/5 that gets plus 500 for each other character, and when it comes in, you can pay an extra 1 to burn 1. Not amazing, but it's a finisher of sorts. And now for the new. Link Strike Silica. If all your characters are Avatar or Net, she gets plus 1500 and can't be backed up against, and when she comes in, she heals. Note, she does come in as part of the Kirito Link Strike combo in Ordinal Scale, but obviously since this is a Silica deck, we're not running it. It also bears mentioning that even though she's pictured with Pina on the card art, she doesn't get the boost if you have a Pina on the stage since he's not Avatar or Net. Seems like a mild oversight, but honestly, both of these cards kind of seem like that. Because let's be honest, they're not amazing. They do heal and do extra damage, but they're kind of the bare minimum in terms of what constitutes a finishing suite. Unfortunately, Silica easily has the worst level 3s of all the girls in Sword Art. It's probably to make up for the fact that she has some of the best level 0s. But regardless, though it's functional, it's not the best. So that's why we have these 2 events. Former Formidable Foe. Say that 3 times fast. You pay 3 stock and deal 4 damage. Yeah, again, not great, but it's an extra attack, and it technically doesn't break our waifu deck, even though the addition of Pina's kind of broke it already. Alright, I'm done. So how does it play? Well, standby and change are very important to your strategy, so getting targets into your waiting room early is key, and standbying your start of the adventure Silicas is always a good move. Your level 0 suite is filled with tutors and filters, so take advantage of them. And when you hit level 1, be sure you can take advantage of all the threatening stuff you can field. You can put down a 10k front row with your first adventure climax combo and a fluffy on the head change into battle stance. Remember, you'll need 3 stock to make a fluffy change happen and 1 stock when you attack with start of the adventure Silica to take advantage of the combo. But this is why I choose the stock soul version. Because unfortunately, even with standby, this deck is monstrously hungry for stock. Watching your stock use is the most important tip I can give you here. Take advantage of all your free filtering with After Party Keiko and Fluffy on the head, as well as your level 0 suite, and basically stand by as much as you can. Now keep in mind that standbying your level 3s denies you the healing on Link Strike and the burn on Bashful. Yeah, not amazing. Stand by your level 2s instead, and use your filtering to pick up your level 3s to gain mileage from them when you play them. But if you need 2 soul bodies, they're still good for that. At level 3, 6 stock will buy you 2 Bashfuls and 2 burns, or 1 Bashful and 1 burn for event, or 3 Link Strikes. You'll need a much higher amount of stock to do more, so try to aim for that number. And of course, try to keep an event in your hand since it's arguably the best finisher you have access to. Players, not all decks are optimized. If they were, the game would be a lot less interesting. This deck is an interesting case study on what we can do with Silica and Pina, a pair that players have been experimenting with since Weiss came over the Pacific Ocean. The deck has its own unique flavor and feel, and you get to play with some niche characters with interesting abilities and strategies. Try it out for yourself, and believe it or not, there are plenty of other options. Build, experiment, and have fun. Anyway, that's enough for now. This was a fun little deck tech to make, and it's a cool deck that I like to pick up and play on occasion. Definitely not my main squeeze, but worth picking up nonetheless. And it has an interesting enough history to at least make note of it, and keep in mind that many decks in Weiss are like this. Fun experiments built around a central theme that have their own game plan that doesn't necessarily line up with what's optimal, so don't get too caught up in the meta players. Anything can win in Weiss, even Silica and her big furry Pinas. I'll see myself out now. Peace.